Well, hello there. It's the Weekend Update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Boy, there's a lot of things going on today. I spent the best part of 3 hours just scurrying around, but basically writing down my thoughts on about 4 or 5 different subjects here. You know, so there's a lot of things going on with Trump. And the 37 indictments. And
you'll see that I have a stack of stuff here, too.
Yeah, you got my favorite phrase, a veritable plethora of information.
Yes, I love that word, a veritable plethora of stuff.
Poop.
Man, but you know, I was thinking, why is it that they're so anxious to put Trump in jail and to ignore Biden? They supposedly did the exact same thing, you know, with the documents. But they're saying it's okay for Biden, it's okay for Pence. That's okay. No problem. Nothing to see here.
Well, with Trump, there are allegations. There's no proof. With Pence and Biden, there's proof. And with Biden, there's proof, hard copy proof that's been seen by both sides and verified that he is guilty of treason. But yet, nothing going on here. Let's look the other way. Right before your eyes, they are telling you nothing of importance.
And the difference also is that a president has the right to declassify anytime, anywhere, anywhere he wants. Vice presidents don't have that option, but yet they're giving the benefit of the doubt to the vice presidents in this situation, Biden and Pence, and they're going after Trump. This will be, by the way, if you think about this, the first time in the history of the United States where a sitting president of the United States is trying to legally take out his closest presidential challenger.
And that's dangerous. According to Alan Dershowitz, it's the most dangerous thing that can happen. Now, Alan said that, you know, that this is a weak case. Now, the tape recording that's out there, briefly just say, you know, where he goes, yeah, look, I've got a document here that's classified. And you hear paper rattle. That's all you hear. You don't see anything. Did he hand it to the guy to read? I venture to say no, and there's no proof that he did. But if he were sitting there going, you know, I've got some goods on the deep state or the left or both that is so damning, and that's what they've been after all along, and they know he's got it, so they got to make him guilty of anything they can because they, by God, do not want you to see what that is. And Trump is waiting for the opportunity. So maybe, you know, maybe he was overzealous in doing the paper rattling, or maybe it was purposeful because he's
and maybe
going,
it wasn't even a classified document in his hand. He may have said, "I have a classified document." He may have been.
There's nothing because they haven't found it yet.
He may have been shaking a menu or something like that. We don't know what he was doing.
It could have been staged, and this could all be, you know. But you know, we fall into. And the media is right there with the scripted narrative on this whole thing. And I will tell you this, that it appears that Trump can't win, that he might be doing some time, but it's all on hearsay. It's politics and party-only Democrats. The only people that are out there that can do them are the unengaged. Well, unengaged public, they're no good either because they believe what they see on the news. But it's the engaged voters that are not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents and whatnot. Real people that pay attention. Are there enough of us?
The difference is, I think, what's going to happen is I think he's going to win, even if he's wearing an orange jumpsuit in jail. I think, by the way, he can run for office while he's in prison. People say, what? No, he can. There's nothing in the Constitution.
They're trying to say, see, they'll try to really rally it through quick to change that so that he can't run. But he won't be able to campaign, so to speak, if they threw him in prison. But again, you know, there have been other leaders in other parts of the world that have been imprisoned, and they had just as big a voice from prison. Mandela.
Well, yeah, that's true. But he got out and became the leader of South Africa. What's interesting?
But he was in for a long time.
Yeah, he was. James Michael Curley was mayor of Boston. I believe he was still mayor of Boston when he was in prison. And they love their mayors in Boston, no matter where they are. But that's an old example. you got to ask yourself, why is it that Donald Trump is doing this to himself? Because he doesn't need this. He's got all the money and all the the wealth and all the accoutrements that go with being phenomenally wealthy. And why is he doing this?
Well, he's got, I don't know, you have a theory. I mean, he's going after something, and that something is involved in something that might not be so palatable.
He has said recently that he is going after child trafficking, human trafficking in the United States. He talked about it as being the most vile and evil of things. It's out there, folks. It is out there, and there's a market for it, believe it or not, in the United States of America. I'll tell you why. For example, the airline industry, $20 billion industry right now, $20 billion. That's because it's back on an upswing. People are flying again. Pandemic is over. They're not afraid.
Come fly with me.
$20 billion. Human trafficking in the United States of America is a $33 billion a year business. 33.
That's what we know of. But the United States is the number one trafficker of children, and human trafficking, even adult trafficking. Why is that? What for? Well, there's a lot of different things that you can traffic them in. There's a thing called a meat house. You know what that is?
I have a feeling I do know, but I think you should explain.
All right, I had a friend. He's long gone. He was a doctor, but he wrote a song called "The Meat House." I don't know if you can find it anywhere, but there was also a movie by George C. Scott. I think it was called Hardcore. And basically, what happens? The Meat House is for like young people. They go, "I want to go and be a star." They're fed up with their Midwest life, their East Coast life, wherever they are, middle class America, and they go out to chase the bright lights. And they go and they're at the bus station, or they get off at the train station, and that theoretically is the meat house. Somebody walks up to them and going, "Boy, you have the look of a star." And they're all, "Oh, I've made it to Hollywood. And I can get you to the right people." And so they go with them. They are right there to get these innocent people coming off of trains, buses, however they get in, planes, and they can spot them, and they get them. And that's the last you're ever going to see them, unless you see them in a smut film. And a smut film is where somebody rich pays to see somebody raped and mutilated and their throat slit, because they want to see
a snuff
film. Yeah, a snuff film. Or they end up in real true pornography. They're forced into it, but it's the very raunchy kind that has different names, and then that star just disappears because they're killed in real life. Or they become somebody's sex doll in a den of some rich guy's iniquity, where he just puts them in his den of what he wants to do with. So that is what a meat house is. And it's right there to answer the door when you get into town.
And Bill, this isn't new. Back in the 30s and 40s in Hollywood, they had the casting couch, or you would hear stories about how somebody was having a drink at a soda fountain in Hollywood, and an agent came in and saw them, and they took them under their wing, and they became a star. Even some of Hollywood's biggest stars, mostly female, but even some of Hollywood's biggest stars were the victims of human trafficking and child molestation to get to winning.
And you know what? There are women directors out there that's how they get their men, because they want men want women. And then there's the gay community out there too that thrives. And, so yeah, the rule is when you go to LA, you got to pay your dues. 1 year that you go to the parties, you do everything you got to do, but you're not going to get a job and make money. They want to see that you got the tenacity to stick it out. But that makes you vulnerable to them, to where they come up to you and say, you've got what it takes. You stick around me and do what I tell you to do, and I'll make sure you get your break, when your time comes. And that's how the business works. And with that meat house thing, the one thing I didn't say, there is a place where they'll take you, where actually buyers come and, touch, prod, do whatever they want to do This one will be in my film. This one will be in my den. So, that meat house is all encompassing.
And by the way,
Hollywood.
that 1 year thing you were just talking about, give me 1 year and then I'll put you in, I'll make sure you get in. That doesn't always happen.
Supply.
Yeah, some people will give them a year, maybe 2 years, and their break never happens because the person who is doing that to the young people are liars, and they're evil. James Woods, the famous Hollywood actor, been in a lot of great movies, and he's a super actor, a real good actor. James Woods was asked, and this was recently, is Hollywood as bad as people say it is? Is Hollywood as evil? That's the word. Is Hollywood as evil as people say it is? And he said, times 100. Times 100. Think about that for a second. That's a guy who, he knows Hollywood. Another person, I was listening to this on another podcast this morning, as a matter of fact, a guy was saying that you can expect an attack on Mel Gibson very soon. I don't mean physical attack, but an attack on his character.
They've done it before when he did
The Passion of the Christ.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Well, expect it again because he's just finishing up a 4-part series on the human trafficking business and its connection to Hollywood and its connection in the United States. And it's supposed to be magnificent. I played the cut yesterday from one of the people involved with that docuseries, and I'm going to play it again because it's worth a listen. Listen.
Ukraine got a phone call from Mel Gibson. He actually did the final edit of The Sound of Freedom. That's how we know each other, but not well enough that I'd be getting phone calls. And he told me that he was in Budapest at the time. This was right hours after the invasion, and he said he supports a bunch of orphans in Ukraine, and he was worried about them, and he asked if I could help get them out. So now I've got 12 from my wife, I got 13 others from Mel Gibson, and I'm thinking, okay, I got this list of kids I got to get out. I told Mel, I said, you got to help me. This is going to be expensive. I won't ask you for direct donation, but can you help me film this? Let's film what's happening so we can get people to understand and they can support us. He said, no problem. He helped us get set up and started filming. 4 months later, what I thought was going to be maybe a documentary about Ukraine ends up being a 4-part docuseries that's almost done. It's being produced by DNA Films and executive produced by Tony Robbins. That's how crazy it got and how prophetic my wife was. When I showed up in Ukraine with a list of, I think, 20 names, the Ukrainians countered me and gave me over 10,000 names of orphans that they didn't know where they were because of the chaos caused by war. And more importantly, and more frightening to me, was the fact that I know that human trafficking is a $32 billion a year business. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and I also know how kids get forced into that market. And it's through vulnerable situations like in the aftermath of a hurricane, mostly in a developed country, or an earthquake, or in this case, a war. And so the traffickers call it harvest time. And that was the intel we were getting. And so we weren't just there to extract those kids, but look for leads. And it really was a miracle what happened. It's one of these things that, faith precedes the miracle. I take a lot of comfort in the fact that there's only one time in the scripture where Jesus gets mafioso. It's righteous because it's Jesus doing it. But if you listen to his words, it's mafioso. He says that it would be better for you to have a millstone cast about your neck and you thrown to the bottom of the sea than that you would hurt one of these little ones, my children. That's mafioso action, sinking someone to the bottom of the ocean. And Jesus said it. So I know where he stands on it, so I can expect, and we can expect miracles when we're fighting to protect children. I never dreamed there'd be a day when...
Wow. That's, I was watching a video this morning. A guy was out in the desert in Mexico, just across the border. He was doing a video report about human child trafficking. He said, I want to show you something. And he goes into a little ravine area, and there are these pup tent type things that have been set up. The area is empty. There's no people there. He said, come with me. He goes into one of the tents. He says, diapers. he picks up a bag of diapers. Little children's shoes, he picks up some shoes. He says baby formula. And he starts picking up all these different things. He says, this is all paraphernalia left behind by the child human traffickers. And, he said the thing is, they get a lot of their kids from people who don't have, like, birth certificates. And they don't have birth certificates, so it's easy for them to ship them around the world, to use them any way they want to, and to dispose of them if they have to, because there's no record that they ever existed. So it's easy. It's easy for them. These little children they're being manipulated, they're being abused, and in many cases they're being killed by these evil, evil people. And getting back to Donald Trump, I remind you that he promised the world that he would stop human trafficking. He would stop it. And if you don't think that rings and resonates in the minds of these evil deep staters who are involved in this, then you're sorely mistaken.
And look at Joe when he's out. He's never said anything about stopping human trafficking, but you see him going around and sniffing the hair, and he's infatuated. He's addicted to young, innocent children.
Yes.
In a creepy way.
Yep.
But, it's not just trafficking for sex and things like that. And no, they're not going to be your little cabana kid. They're going to be something far more nefarious. Now, I would say that some of these children are being used. What happened in Germany with the Jews? The Nazis used them for human research. And, with that, and it was terrible what they did.
They would take twins. They loved twins. The Nazis loved twins because they had,
perfect case study.
A case study, exactly right. They could do something to one of them and not to the other, and see how it affected them. Truly evil of the most evil kind. I mean, I can't tell you how this infuriates me as a relatively decent person to see this kind of thing going on in this country. This is the deep state. I'm gonna venture into a slightly different area. People say, well,
right.
How do they communicate? How do these people? How do they notify each other? They have product to sell or what they want. Instagram has been accused of being involved with the means of communication between pedophiles and sellers of children, human child trafficking. They use as terminology. They use pizza. I'll take one slice of pizza with pepperoni. No cheese. Now, I don't know what that means. I'm not into that whole language, but apparently, if you are into that type of thing, child human trafficking, you understand what that means. I was seeing a story about it yesterday. There's also, you probably have heard, down in D.C. there was a pizza parlor, and I don't know the name, and I wouldn't mention it anyway right now because we don't need to get in. But it was accused of being a center of pedophile trafficking. I mean, and supposedly some very high, very well-known political figures in D.C. who are pedophiles. And yes, they are there. They are in D.C. They would go to this pizza place to order their pizza, their human orders, okay? They would have on the wall in this pizza place, and I've seen pictures, tile pictures of little boys with no clothes on and things like that. I mean, it is vile, and it is out in the open.
I think they were out in the open all along. I think during the Obama administration, they were out in the open. Trump came along by surprise, and they had to kind of, quick, cover this up. And they tried to blow a lot of bad on Trump You know, the cages that were down in Mexico,
Yep.
on our side of the border.
Yep.
And Trump was blamed for those. He didn't build the cages.
Obama
It was
did.
Obama.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what do they house in the cages?
Children.
Oh, you don't think there's a connection, do you?
Well, he did say we're about to fundamentally change this country. That's Obama said that at a rally.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you another thing. What's going on in our society right now with the trans people and the drag queens and things like that? Is that connected? I think they're trying to normalize.
Yeah, I think they are taking perversions and they have to introduce them one by one to make it the norm. And what's sad is a lot of people there are the guys that go, the people that go along with it. Then there are the other people that go, I'm tired of hearing about it. Forget about it. I'm just accepting it. And when they've got that, they go to the next step. And pretty soon it becomes a part of our fabric. Is that the fabric that America wants to have sewn into its flag and into its democracy? If it is, I'm in the wrong damn country.
If you hear a noise in the background, I'm printing something out that I want to read. You hear that noise in the background?
I hear the noise, but I don't see it all the time. For some reason, I've got a monitor that periodically is blacking out. So,
well, I told you what happened in my neighborhood yesterday.
Yes, you did. So if you see me picking my nose, I'm thinking everything's off. At least I hope it's my nose I'm picking.
This is a story I just printed out. Washington judge orders women-only spa with compulsory nudity to accept trans women with male appendages. I'm serious.
What the hell for?
Apparently, there's a spa in Washington State that requires its members, if they're going to be in the spa, you have to be comfortable women with going around other women who are nude. It says a district judge in Washington State has ruled that Olympus Spa, a women-only spa with nudity, where nudity is compulsory, must allow pre-op transgender women with penises to utilize their facility. Meaning, if you are a trans and you haven't had your junk removed yet,
cut and tuck, yeah.
Yep, you still can go to the Olympus Spa, women only.
Olympus, oh.
Yeah, nudity required. You still can go there because this moron of a judge, and I got to tell you another thing. I don't know about how you people feel right now, but I'm about up to here with some of these legal experts, in quotes. My dad was an exceptional trial lawyer. I came from a family of trial lawyers. I have children who are attorneys. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm surrounded by lawyers. I know what good lawyers look like. I know what good judges look like, but they're getting harder to find nowadays because that guy Soros and his money have just infiltrated our legal system with some of the slimiest, evil bums on the planet, like this judge in Washington State. There isn't an iota of decency in this ruling. Not a scintilla of decency in this ruling. This ruling is forcing women who have gone to this spa for relaxation, for comfort, for safety. They know the women who go there obviously felt that they could walk around naked because they were going to be surrounded by other naked women. It wasn't a big deal, right? It was part of the procedure. But now this evil bum of a judge has said, no, if you're a trans and even if you haven't had the surgery yet, even if you still have your package, you can go in that place too. Well, you heard what happened. There was a trans prisoner who was moved to the women's correctional facility because he said he was trans, even though he didn't have his junk removed, and he impregnated a bunch of prisoners. He got a bunch of prisoners pregnant. You know, all you need nowadays with with some of these fathead judges is a not even a good wig, just a wig, and then and make a statement. I feel like a woman. I'm changing, and that's all you have to do, and they'll send you over to the women's spa where they're all naked and have fun. Unbelievable. That is where we are at right now. These are the same people who fight desperately for your school boards to it's okay to have drag shows where guys are stuffed into spandex and they're dancing around and showing their derrieres and whatever, and they're doing it in front of your little kids. I mean, these were the kind of people who, if they were around a schoolyard 20 years, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, if they were around a schoolyard doing these kind of things, you would have called the police and they would have been taken away for lewd and lascivious action. But no. That's not the way it is now. In this society, they're bending every good rule, everything that is decent in our society. They're questioning, they're reversing. They're, as Barack Obama has said, they're fundamentally changing. I mean, and if you, as a good person, as a decent person, if you, Bill Knight, say, that's wrong, well, they make you the outsider.
You know, the stories you don't hear about anymore, you used to hear about him when he was president or when he was running, is Barack himself. There was a male, I guess, prostitute that said that he was a regular client of, Barack was a regular client for him. He went out many dates. So, you got to wonder, I'm not casting judgment on him. I'm not casting judgment on Michelle, but
you have
where
a
there's
right
smoke, there's fire.
You have a right to at least wonder. I saw
That's true.
I saw a picture. Now, nowadays you can manipulate anything, okay?
Yeah.
Nowadays, but here's something that's interesting about this picture. It's basically been wiped from the internet. People, when you have power and money and influence and you control social media, you can have most anything removed. But I did see a picture. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and they don't lie to me. When I see it, it's, it is real. Now, whether the picture has been manipulated, I don't know. But there was a picture of Barack Obama next to Michael Robinson. Michael Robinson. It appeared to be, and what the picture implied, it was Michelle before some kind of a change. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Now, mind you, that would be totally accepted nowadays. Michelle would be someone that the left would revere for having made the transition, but she obviously, if this picture were true, she would have done it 30 years ago. And again, anything can be manipulated. I'm just telling you, I've seen the picture, and it makes you question, And you talk about that guy. I have heard stories about that guy. As a matter of fact, I think I've heard audio tape from that guy, and I don't think that guy is alive anymore. By the way,
may not be. I mean, it's been several years now, but the simple fact is, he did say it. He had apparently evidence to prove it, and hard to refute. But he's not around to question anymore, so you have to take Barack's word for it. Never happened.
So getting back to Donald Trump, here's a guy who is worth at least $10 billion. I mean, thank God he's worth that much money, because he could never afford to protect himself if he weren't so phenomenally wealthy. I mean, yesterday they made a big issue about two of his attorneys. One is named Trusty, and the other attorney that was with him, and they resigned. They're not going to be representing President Trump. And
I think they did that before these indictments came down.
No, they did it. They did it yesterday, right after they came down. And he said, the media was, look at Donald Trump's two leading attorneys. Now they're leading attorneys, mind you. You understand that he has a whole cadre of attorneys that work for him. But two leading attorneys have stepped down. They made it sound like it was something bad, but it was actually something that was agreed to between Donald Trump and the attorneys. They left as friends, so to speak. They left on good terms. As a matter of fact, President Trump thanked them for their service and wished them all the best, and he understood why they were leaving, that it's an incredibly difficult fight. They were up against an unimaginable force of evil. He used the term evil.
He's going to have a hard time finding attorneys. Not that nobody wants to take on the cause, but they're going to have a hard time.
He replaced them. He replaced them with a snap of a finger with an attorney who's going to represent them. Apparently, these were attorneys from New York, and he needs attorneys who are in Miami who are going to be representing him. So he hired I think the firm is named Blanche, Blanche, and they're going to be representing him down. But they're not the only. He's going to make some more announcements on other attorneys. But you're right, Bill. You're right. Here's another thing you have to understand, that these attorneys are being threatened by, they're being threatened, some of them are being threatened with losing their law licenses. Others are having their clients, their other clients say, you're representing Trump, we're going to pull our account. But you're a $10 million account. We're going to pull our account. You're representing Trump, because they're being pressured to do so by the deep
they're going
state.
after the money of everybody around Trump. And, you say 37's a lot. Well, I understand that they're cooking up a lot more. And I'm sorry, but, here's an example. They're going, oh, well, we found documents that he had in the bathroom. Really? Seriously? Yeah. And you know what? They were sprawn out all over the ballroom stage.
Yeah.
Really?
Did you see the picture?
Seriously?
They made sure they showed a picture of a box that had been knocked over, and they were, like you said, documents opened up and on the floor.
I call BS.
Nobody knows how that box fell over. Do you think for 1 second Donald John Trump walked into the storage area where the boxes were and said, gee, I think I'm going to dump this box on the floor and
They
leave
make it
it?
sound like he's a little, 6-month-old playing in his poop. I'm sorry, but that's not how this is. This is so far-fetched. And if you believe it, I will tell you right now, you are not just an idiot, you're a freaking idiot, because if you believe exactly what they're telling you, you're stupid.
Yep. It's amazing how they want you to believe this nonsense. Now, there are some drive-by, I want to say viewers or listeners who will just accept it at face value. Oh, he jumped the stuff on the floor. No. I mean, he was very cooperative with the FBI. The FBI had stopped by his house on several occasions, had looked at everything that he had and said, no, everything's fine here, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, except change that lock to a more secure lock. But everything else is fine. You have to understand that not every box that they showed you yesterday, and they showed you stacks of boxes, not every one of those boxes was filled with a classified document. I think they said they were like 2 or 3 documents that they actually were concerned with. That means that a lot of those boxes had junk in them, okay? Nothing to be concerned about, but they showed you them anyway because they wanted to imply that Trump had an incredible amount of classified documents.
Well, did you ever
house.
notice after they said they were done looking, and they were done looking, we found, this many documents. It was under 20. And then the number went up, and then the number went up, and then the number went up. But they weren't there looking anymore. But then the number went up, and now it's in, 30-something thousand. Really? Okay, so apparently in Washington, they have magic paper that they print documents on, and they mate and they breed.
Hey, I wouldn't put it past anything in Washington.
Well, it's alien technology,
That's true. So anyway, we have the indictments in Florida, and they're talking about don't be so quick to say he's not going to be indicted up in New York too, because
that's coming.
That's coming along too. So they want to smother this poor guy with indictments. And all an indictment is a charge. We're charging him with, okay? We're indicting him. Oh, that's a very heavy thing. And it's like, you can indict a ham sandwich, folks. Seriously. It's like a lawsuit. You can sue a ham sandwich. You can indict a ham sandwich.
But they're doing it a year out from the election, little over a year, but they want to get the traction going. And they're going to throw, from what I hear, over 100 cases out there. They want to sit there and smother him with cases to where all he can do is defend and fight and not promote himself. They can go and manipulate their steel. That's number one. And number two, they don't have to do each of these things, their charges. Well, he's going to get 25 years with a Democratic judge, and Joe sitting there, get him, because I don't want to be gotten.
By the way, Joe was the final go get him. He was the final guy.
He's the one that said do it.
Yep.
And yet he's guilty of receiving $10 million, documented proof. It is there in the FBI's hands.
Yep.
It's been seen by Democrats who acknowledge it and Republicans. So what the hell are we waiting for? Go get the bastard and lock him up.
Yep. Well, the complicit media doesn't do its job. The biggest story that was out yesterday should have been the $10 million bribe that the sitting president of the United States of America has apparently taken from the people in the Ukraine. $10 million. But that was ignored because the guy who was the target of that charge said, no, now's a good time to indict. I want Trump indicted today.
But see, you're being kind. You said apparently. But yet, there is proof. There is proof.
I know.
And even if you wanted to go back to a tape of him doing the interview, and well, son of a bitch, you remember that thing?
Yeah.
He admitted it.
That's true.
He admitted it on tape. And there are sworn documents and witness. That is evidence irrefutable. He needs to go to trial, get his fair day in court, but it needs to be out there. And I dare any media outlet to tell the damn truth and harp on it until it gets, the attention it needs, because that is real bona fide treason.
If you are a leftist and you are dancing with joy with what's happening now, I would suggest you calmly take a seat and catch your breath, because I am of the belief, as are a lot of people, that there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye.
It's politics.
And do not be so quick to think that the right and President Trump is not completely aware of what's going on and fully in control. Fully in control. He just got indicted. Well, let me tell you why I say that. First of all, you know that he had to expect this was coming down.
He said so.
They had to expect this months ago, maybe a year ago. Maybe this was a long-term plan. They were going after the deep state. The deep state. These are people who have been involved with the government in the hallways of power for decades. For decades. In some cases, it has been passed on from generation to generation. It is the most powerful in Washington, the most wealthy in Washington. Do you think that they're going to let this go without a fight? Do you think they're going to say, Donald Trump is going to win in 2024 and we're all going to have to leave? No. They're going to try to make it so he cannot be president, but Trump knows this. Mm-hmm. Trump has known this for forever. He knew it. I mean, even though he was shocked, did you see him leave in 2020 after the election in 2021? When the day that he was leaving, he said, "I'll see you. It may not be as quickly as you'd like, but I'll see you again." He knew what was going on. He knew what had happened. Everybody who was involved with him knew what had happened, except for the weasels like Pence and Chris Christie and people like that. These people who are running after him right now, trying to these are the ones who, by the way, are not rallying around him saying what's happening is a travesty of justice. Chris Christie, he didn't make any comments like this shouldn't be happening. Mike Pence didn't make any comments like it shouldn't be happening. Now, Ron DeSantis did say it was wrong, but he also said, well, and I'll change it when I'm president, meaning he used the opportunity to try to sell himself.
Yeah, right now Republicans shouldn't be worried about winning because we should be worried about keeping our party intact and cleaning up the swamp, because if that doesn't happen, no Republican's going to get in office, and we're going to be a one-party nation.
I've said it many times before. There will be no Trump victory in 2024 if the situation isn't changed before 2024.
Well, you got to think about it. You know, the United States, District of Columbia is incorporated, just like in England. All right? So, but we have a president of the United States, but the United States is owned by the entity that is incorporated. So
A lot of people don't know that.
yeah, but so therefore that entity has to have a CEO or somebody that's in charge of it. And that, my friends, I'm telling you right now, is your true leader. That's where the true leaders
Somebody
of
you won't
this-
see, somebody who's hidden in the darkness.
the man behind the curtain or a woman behind the curtain or people behind the curtain. They are the ones that own and control this country. Everything else is a puppet show. And unfortunately, I'm saying we're part of this puppet show too. You know, and
You and I?
we're part of the puppet show.
I'm not
because
involved
we're,
with it. I'm not in the puppet
we're
show.
trying to expose the fact that Washington is a puppet show.
Yes.
You know, that it's fake. So that makes us a player in this stupid
Well,
game.
maybe we're a player in the play, but we're not. I don't think that
No,
we're
we're not puppets. No,
Yeah.
no.
But I do think that we're going to see this during the course of the next year. Do not think that for 1 second they're going to let an opportunity to take your attention away from the true stories and what's really going on happen. For example, I think not this summer so much, but next summer before the elections, expect rioting to happen again. Expect the cities to catch fire. Something will happen that will spark the fires. You'll see Antifa out there burning the cities down with no consequence. Because Joe Biden's in office, he won't send in the National Guard, and the police will have their hands tied by liberal George Soros-backed mayors, just like in 2020, and those fires will burn, and he'll blame it on MAGA. They'll talk about how MAGA has has been the catalyst for these fires. It won't be, but they'll tell you that's what it is, because they'll use every opportunity to distort the truth. This is a group of very evil people. This is, don't think for 1 second that it can't have a direct effect on you and your family, because if they can take down the president of the United States or former president of the United States of America, who's worth $10 billion, don't think for 1 second they can't come to your house and have an effect on your family too, to essentially close you down, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I have to be honest here for just a second. I've been telling you off when we were doing the audio that my screen was going blank and
Right.
dark. Everything went dark. The audio shut off, and when you came back on, you were talking real fast, like Donald Duck, like somebody.
Are
was
you
playing with it.
serious?
Yeah, I didn't hear one damn thing you just said.
Nothing on this end of our connection has changed. Nothing
No.
on my end.
Didn't change on this end either. So I was like going, it's probably a glitch in the wires, which we get every now and then, which I find strange. You would have seen me actually waving, going,
Yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah,
making the
nothing.
signals that everything is blank
You
here.
you
'Cause
missed, by the way, the best part of my show.
I know. I missed everything that was good, but I wanted to point it out. If I,
Yeah.
I didn't have the proper response because I have no clue as to
Well,
what
you know,
I'd be responding to.
I have to tell you another thing. I hesitate to tell you this, but I think I
probably
will.
shouldn't.
I think you don't think I should do this, Bill?
Oh, well, you mentioned it now. You saw something strange yesterday at your house that even a construction person there going,
Yeah, I live in a very
that's weird.
suburban residential neighborhood, very middle America kind of neighborhood. And but we're not too far from a power line, maybe 150, 200 yards from a set of power lines that they don't run through my yard or anything like that. They are off in the distance. I've lived here long enough to see inspections of those power lines by helicopters, where they actually come down the power lines
And they fly, they fly the line.
They'll fly the line, and they literally they literally will be like 10 or 15 feet above the line, and they will fly right along at a slow speed down the power lines, and that's how they do their inspection. Yesterday, like I said, I figured 200 yards from the power lines. Yesterday, I had a small black helicopter about 2:00 in the afternoon come down my street just about, and I was in my driveway with this guy talking about putting sealer on my asphalt driveway, right? And this guy comes down, this helicopter comes down, and he is probably, I don't know, 75 yards from my house.
That's close.
And he stops midair, and he does, and he's looking right at me. I mean, the helicopter, the pilot is looking right at. It seemed like he was looking at me. I got pictures, but it doesn't do any good on an audio podcast. And then he does a stationary 360 rotation. He does a stationary. He doesn't, and, and then he turns back to me. Now you said to me maybe he was showing off from me in the.
Well, if you could see his face and he saw yours, if the guy's a jackass, he was just going, "Hey, let's."
He wasn't alone.
This guy.
He was not alone. I got pictures, and he was not alone. What I did get are the only thing on the helicopter were the numbers on the tail of the helicopter. I got that, so I could report the guy if I wanted to, but the rest of it was completely black, and it looked like he was wearing a military flight suit with a helmet. I mean, you've seen these, and now that could be, again, it was
It could be a jumpsuit from a company that flies black helicopters. And you know what they do? Flying the power line, when I was learning to fly a long, long time ago, and there goes the screen again.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, some of the things that I would do to get the airtime, like one time I flew with somebody to fly pipeline, believe it or not. And we inspected pipeline in Texas, and you'd be flying along at a real low altitude. And I said, this is really no fun because, you're flying, in little ravines and whatnot, following a pipeline, and you're just,
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous. And then a couple of times, I would sit there and, I would take a plane with somebody that had to fly to, Arkansas or something like that. And they'd get off at the airport, and then I would, take the plane off again and fly it back to its home base. And
You've flown along pipelines yourself. You know
but
how
you
the
don't
procedure
deviate
is
from
done.
it.
Yeah.
You don't deviate from it. You don't go over to a house and go, oh, look at this.
Well,
I can do a complete
here's
circle
the
in
thing, Bill.
stationary position.
He was not over the pipe. He was not over the power lines.
He was never there.
He was over the houses in my neighborhood. Now, that to me seems to be wrong. If he was looking at the lines, I would have thought he would have flown, like I've seen in the past, much closer to the power lines. But literally, he was flying over our houses. I have pictures. And
Well, it could have been there's just playing devil's advocate. Let's say that he was looking for something and he had, let's say, infrared to look for. They might have had a tip that there was a cell or a criminal that was somewhere in the area, and they were looking. You don't know.
No, you're absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. It may have had nothing whatsoever to do with us or this podcast,
But it is
and
odd.
the effect that we have with our podcast. But by the way, that is something else I should point out. We should thank the people who are tuning into It's Another Day with Jim and Bill, because we are growing exponentially. It's amazing, and we have. I had a lady who friended us. Where was she from? I think her name was Elaine, and I think she was from South Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah, and she's one of our new regular listeners. We should do that more often. We should actually say hello to people. If you want to be mentioned with your first name, we would never use your last name.
No, we don't want to give you away because you have your rights.
We don't
to privacy,
want we don't want black helicopters flying over your house.
Or red helicopters or blue helicopters.
You know, it's interesting though when people say, have you seen those black helicopters fly over your house? I thought, yesterday, that was a black helicopter that flew over my house. It wasn't a red and white one. It wasn't a blue, red, and white one. It wasn't, it was a black helicopter. I thought, well, this is different. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, if it's a big green one that looks like a
see,
grasshopper, Joe's coming to visit you.
Let's say, hypothetically, they were looking into us, okay? What would they find? They would find two former radio guys who spent a whole
find
career.
An old guy in front of a microphone with a bottle of water
and
his trail mix in my little Tupperware
and his partner holding a cup of coffee and with his baseball cap on. I mean, it's kind of boring. If you're
so lonely, we have no life.
If you are tasked by the deep state to find out more about Jim Harrington and Bill Knight, I feel bad for you. Anyway, on Monday, I'm sure we'll talk some more about what's going on in the news. President Trump, the people who have seen him since the indictment say he's in good spirits. He has expected this and to hang on. It ain't over.
Well, it's interesting because he's got to be in Mar-a-Lago, Tuesday?
He's got to be in Miami. Miami.
Or Miami, wherever it is. He's down in Florida doing the thing, which I believe is a day or two before his birthday, 77.
The good news is that the judge that has been tasked with this is a Trump appointee. I'm sure that
would not hold your breath.
That's very true. We have seen Supreme Court justices who were appointed by the president who we thought would be, quote, on our side, who have been major disappointments.
Because if she throws it out, the Dems are going to sit there and protest and stomp and cry, and they're just going to find a new judge to re-throw the thing at them.
There is a former, let me see whether I got it right, a former top Department of Justice official has said that Jack Smith's case against President Trump can be thrown out with something that he found on page 3 of the document. Page 3. I think it's 49 pages long.
Yes, it
is. He said on page 3 there's something that is absolutely mind-blowing, and that item alone should force the judge to throw it out, the whole thing. I think that all they have to do is say, hey, Your Honor, President Clinton had the same thing, and it was ruled that a president has the right to declassify at any time, anywhere, for any reason, and that's it. He's the final
Oh, well, that makes it
decider.
standing law. I mean, once you have that's case law, and until something changes, with another ruling, it's case law, they have to go by it.
But, Bill, this goes back to what we've said before. The Democrats feel in an election year, the process is the punishment. They don't care about whether they win or lose. Mm-hmm. They smother him with allegations and charges. They keep him off the campaign trail if they can. And odds are he'll lose the presidential election, and they will have won. They may have lost the cases, but they will have been effective.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's all they want. And, if you don't think the steal happened before, just wait until you see this next election.
So listen, before you lose your screen again and, somebody starts making faces back at you that you don't know who is on your screen there, I think we should wrap this update up. I know it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Well, the other day we were in the middle of doing a show, and all of a sudden we heard what sounded like noise in the background and breathing, and I thought it was coming from your end, and you thought it was coming from my end. It had to be somebody in the middle who left their mic on.
It could be. Well, and sometimes I think that wires do get crossed. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy guy, but
I do.
Sometimes things are just a little too odd and a little too often.
That's true.
That you got to question it. But, C'est la vie. The connection is good and great show that'll be on the air in just moments.
If you want to talk to us, you can call us at 833-538-7868, 833-538-7868.
Mail at itsanotherday.com. Mail at itsanotherday.com. That would be how you get in touch with us.
Yes. Anyway, I hope you have a great remainder of your weekend, whatever that weekend is going to be like. I hope you have a good time doing it. I'm going to go out now and see whether there's any more helicopters in my backyard.
Maybe like space aliens, it leaves residue.
Maybe, yeah. But
Yeah, you never know.
Wait a second. I do hear a helicopter.
Yeah.
Have
It's in whisper mode.
Have a good one, my friend. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.